It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games. Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Tusk Top.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It is time to talk with Real Salt Lake coach Pablo Mastroeni. Pablo, getting ready for a trip to Texas. I'm intrigued the way this season has gone, and I'm intrigued by something you've mentioned a few times we've been on the air. We've been talking this morning about how do you go from good to great. RSL sitting in a playoff spot. RSL has a winning record. We're a third of the way in. A lot of nice people in the national media are saying nice things about you. You're clearly a good team, but you lost to Vancouver. You lost to Miami. You haven't hoisted a trophy in a while, so you're not a great team. When you talk about that with your staff, what are the next couple of boxes you want to check as you try to move the team from good to great?
Well, I think consistency is important, and I think the only way you get to great is being consistent. And I talk about it all the time. It's really Monday through Friday. It's about winning the games, and more importantly, I think it's about learning from each game. Right? I don't think we don't get low when we don't win. We don't get high when we do win. It's really about the consistency of improvement from week to week and being a better version of ourselves than we were the previous game. So I think that's a starting point. And then obviously, like you said, you got to raise the trophy at some point. I think what makes it really difficult now versus in years past is the amount of teams and that are in this league. And in our case, the West is just it's a beast. I think we'd be somewhere like third or fourth maybe third in the East if we were in that conference. But it's a battle, so it's not easy. And I don't know if you saw the Champions Leagues. There's two Mexican teams in the finals.
I did.
So it's a bit daunting. But I think when you look at it that big, and that's why I don't think it ever benefits you to think that big. Until you're doing all the little things right. I think it's easier to digest. It's easier to work through the week-to-week work, to be consistently performing at a high level so that the results go in your favor. And then, of our three losses, two of them have been admittedly refereed the wrong way. Two red cards and two of the three losses. So I feel really good about where we're at. I feel good about how we're learning as a group. And I feel that this year could be a special year.
What do Morgan Giavogi and Sanabria bring to the team? Those two guys, it's not like they got 20. You put someone who scores 20 goals, we all get it. But you talk about these guys in the middle of the field and the way they think. What is it that they're giving the team that excites you so much? Because I don't hear you talk about players that often the way you talk about those two guys.
Yeah, I just think that their soccer understanding is extremely, extremely high. And what that usually does, and then technically they're elite, right? So two of the most technical players that we have. So when your soccer understanding is really, really high, they understand how to work with other players, right? So they're always thinking one step ahead. They're always an option after they pass the ball. They're always finding players in difficult positions to be able to break defenses down. So I just think that, and I think that's why great players are really expensive to get on board. They're just because they're not only great players for themselves and what they do on an individual perspective, and this is what I kind of explain to ownership is Morgan Giavogi might not get to 20 goals this year, but I'll tell you what, we're going to be a better attacking team if he's on the field because he creates the type of synergy and he's almost like the jockey on the horse. He's always thinking about the next play. And when you have younger players on the field that might not be thinking two steps ahead, he will facilitate the decisions for them. But also when you have these guys in training every single day, they start to leach their soccer brain into the group. And now you see guys like Gozo and Aiden really thinking at a much higher level that we couldn't do as a coach because it's hard to go out in the field and show them what to do every day.
There's a World Cup coming up, and there are a lot of people worried the United States isn't going to do well. And if the United States, and you never know, so maybe they will, maybe they won't, but if they don't do well, I'm sure I'm going to hear this line of thinking, well, when the U.S. gets their best athletes playing soccer, and I'm always like, no, the U.S. never gets out-athleted in a game. It goes back to what you talk about. And can you explain what you want out of somebody with technical ability? Because to me, that often means, can you make the ball do what you want it to do? Do you hit it where they call it the right weight or the right pace? Can you curve it left to right to left, bend it around somebody, a goalkeeper, a defender, whatever? Because the elite players, it's almost like magic wand territory. You see these balls just whipped in accurately. It's phenomenal. And to me, that's technical ability. Do you want more than just that when you say that?
Yeah, yes. And I'll go a few steps behind where you just described, which was the actual execution of the pass or the cross or the shot. I'm going to go as far as understanding before they receive the ball, they are scanning the field. So they know where they are in relationship to their teammates and their opponents. So that's first. If you don't know where you are, it's a good chance you don't know where you're going when you receive it. So the highest level players understand space and time in relationship to their teammates and their opponents. The second part of that is how they receive the ball. What surface do they receive it? Do they receive it with their, first touch going forward? Are they touching it sideways into a space? So then once they know where they're going, then they know exactly where to manipulate the ball with their first touch. And then the last part is having scan and understand where you're going, is executing the weight of the pass, the arc of the shot or cross or pass, and understanding where I have to play this ball in relation. If my teammate's running into space, understanding again space and time is how far out in front of him do I have to pass this ball given the space that he has. So all these things are, when we talk about technique, it's all of those things. And those things are done in, some of those in milliseconds, some of those in seconds. But the greatest players in the world are basically scanning and making these, formulating these equations, solving these equations in their heads before you actually see it on the field.
You mentioned ownership, and I think the real magic overlooked here, and you've been in pro sports and you've been in different organizations, so you can speak to this. New ownership comes in, and this happens in radio and TV too. This is, whatever your business is, you've probably seen this. New ownership comes in, and they want to do things their way and on their people, and often it means taking everything back down to the ground floor and building it up again. And the problem in the organization, not to flatter you while you're sitting there, it wasn't the coaching. You had taken teams pick 13th and gotten them to 7th and squeezed stuff out of guys. In the front office, had found guys that nobody else wanted. You found them in the draft. They found them after Portland let Caliscan go. They drafted a Meccanelli out of Cornell. Found a goalkeeper. I don't even know how, but he's out of contract. He's a free agent. Didn't have to pay anything to get him, just bring him in. They've done some great bargain basement shopping. The last thing ownership needed to do was pull apart the pieces that were already in place. And they decided to come in and they thought, what we need to do? We need to spend money and write checks. And Sanabria comes in and Giavogi comes in, the guys we just talked about. But the one thing that hangs over this, and you mentioned the Champions League, people in the U.S. won't really think the teams in the U.S. are good until we see them beat Mexico. Nobody really believed in the national team until the World Cup team you were on in 2002. They beat Mexico in the World Cup on a neutral field in Asia. Okay, they must be good. So now the league needs to do that, but as long as you have a salary cap, as long as Mexico gets to spend whatever in Liga MX, and you have a salary cap, so you have to find a kid in college like Solans and start him as your goal scorer. And then people are like, why doesn't he finish more chances? I'm like, well, I don't know. He's playing at UCLA last year. It's a little bit of a step up. Maybe he needs more than 10 games to adjust, So as long as you have the salary cap and you have to find a Brazilian goalkeeper who's out of contract and you have to take the kid that Portland didn't want, and then you have injuries, so you got to take a 6'6" guy who, honestly, you don't even see 6'6" guys in the back line. I can't believe he's playing at this level. But you win with him. People can say whatever they want. You're winning with him. But that's not going to help you beat Mexico or whoever else. How do you solve that problem? Take your big view of the sport, because that's what fans are paying money to see. When the teams from Mexico come in for Leagues Cup, they want to see you beat them again and again and
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, well, I would say, and again, I think just with this tournament that just took place, I think we have an advantage having the Leagues Cup here in the United States. I think they're playing away games, and you saw, the Toluca game.
Yeah.
I mean, that looked like it was insane, the amount of passion and energy that was in that stadium, and teams vibe off that, right? So we inherently have an advantage playing our games here at home, and so I think. I think, and there's been obviously, MLS teams that have won the Leagues Cup. So I back ourselves, given what you said is like, and I think that's what makes us unique is we're trying to find, we're developing young players, we're developing young men, in a way that, and I think this year was a huge step forward as far as the recruitment was concerned. I think we did a fantastic job as a club of adhering to, the values of our ownership, the values of the club, the things that we believe in, and actually getting some real quality people and players. And I think we can be successful and sustain it. I think we have a good blueprint for what works, what doesn't. We've made some decisions in the past with very, like what you're saying, spending a lot of money on certain players, but they weren't necessarily the best people, or they didn't fit in the locker room well. So we were never ever able to get the most out of them, right? So these guys that we've brought in, we've identified, they're aligned with us and on the field, off the field, and what they're doing to the group that we currently have, because they're cut from the same cloth. They're all hard workers, they're all growers, they're all learners. Is that we're getting like a synergistic effect to the group, a compounded effect to the group. So I think we can. It's not so much about how much money you spend. It's really about the fit of the player. And there is a certain caliber of player that you must have. But I feel like like we just talked about, Sanabria and Morgan Gilavogi, what they've done and Stein as well. And what those three have done to help Noel Kaliskin, Luna, Gozo, Solans, this is sustainable, right? And it's not going to always be about the money. So, I think, but you're right. I think, we MLS teams have to beat Mexican teams, and the Leagues Cup provides a great opportunity. But I just feel like because we don't do everything like the rest of the teams in the league, it doesn't mean that we can't get there. We just have to prove that we can get there, and I think that's what we were alluding to earlier.
You've got another stretch here of 4 games coming in pretty quick succession here. I think it's 4 games over 15 or 16 days. And then you hit the World Cup break. So going back to your days at North Carolina State, Pablo, it feels like midterms right now. You're playing a lot of teams that are either just barely in front of you or just barely behind you in the standings. Do you think these games, 2 home, 2 away, so I like the way that kind of balances out, does this give you a good look at where you really fit in the league? I mean, if you dominate this group, then I would say you're in the top tier of the league. Maybe you're to the bottom of the top tier, but you're in the top tier of the league. Obviously, if you had a string of bad results, we'd have to reevaluate that a little lower. But it does feel to me like a midterm. Do you feel the same way? Because you're classic one game at a time guy, and I might be, walking into a door here.
No, well, again, I think everyone on the outside can frame it however they want. I just know how I have to, communicate with the players. I don't say this, hey guys, we have to win X amount of games. I'm saying, guys, these are the things from last game that weren't good enough, that we have to get better in the Dallas game. And that's it. And again, my job as a coach is to make sure I take all the pressure off those guys so they can play free. So it's from a fan's perspective and even from, I think a coaching front office perspective, I think, that's a good assessment. It'll give us enough data, enough performances to kind of see where we're at, and more importantly, what we need to do better moving forward. And I think that's the way we are as a group, and we'll find a way to maximize the output of every player on this team, and hopefully those performances lead to continued good results, especially here at home, which has been nice. But again, we start off this week tomorrow against a tough Dallas team away from home. But like I said, because we're so process oriented, I feel really good about every game. I don't feel like we're ever underprepared, ever, punching above our weight. I feel like we're in a really good headspace, and I feel it on the training field every day. I feel it in the coach's office every day. And I think that for me, that's a really important barometer to have, and it's feel and not so much the other stuff.
Pablo, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for giving us a few minutes, and good luck on the road this weekend.
Thanks, DJ. Talk to you later.
All right, there's Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach, and you'll hear that Dallas game 6:30 pregame at 5:30 on 97.5 The Zone Saturday night. And then they come home for 3 games in a week, 2 of them at home and then off to Minnesota, and then the World Cup break. It'll be a long break. They'll be out for like 6-7 weeks there. All right, DJ and PK, we're going to take a break. When we come back, everything you missed in this show, everything in the world of sports. We've been talking about going from good to great. I see not 1, not 2, but 3 teams. They're operating at a great level, whether it's the NBA playoffs or the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's a 4th team we can debate. Might know a lot more by the time we gather back here on Monday. We will get to all of that, getting you up to speed. All the headlines you missed next. Stay with us.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeCoe.
Why is BYU not coming to Logan? It's great that they're playing BYU, but why is there no return trip? Getting this rivalry just on the books in some way, shape, or form is huge. For Utah State, they need quad 1 games. In the landscape of college basketball, it would not surprise me one bit if Utah State called up Kentucky or called up Kansas. And I wouldn't surprise me one bit if Kentucky's like, sure, hold please, click. Kansas, click. Because I don't think these teams are interested in building other teams' resumes, especially G5 resumes.
The bottom line is the power schools have always and definitely currently hold the cards. For BYU to work with Utah State and get 2 dates on the calendar in today's basketball world, I mean, it's definitely a win. It's a win for both. It's a win for the state. I wish last year they were on the schedule.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Cade to the right wing. Cade launches and connect. A big-time long gun goes for Cade, and the Pistons are up 92-87.
Wing right Holmgren. Jab steps on H. Holds. Cranks a 3 that's online. Looks good. It is. He splashes it. Cha-ching a Thunder money ball. Chet the All-Star knocks down his 3rd 3 tonight.
LeBron has the worst whistle of any star player I've ever seen. I mean, I've been with him 2 years now. Again, the smaller guys, because they can be theatric, they typically draw more fouls, and the bigger players that are, built like LeBron, it's hard for them. But he gets clobbered, and he got clobbered again tonight a bunch, and that's not like a new thing. That's not specific to this crew or, this series. He gets fouled a lot. That doesn't happen. I mean, guy gets hit on the head more than any player I've seen on drives, and it rarely gets called.
DJ and PK, it's time for the Slacker Radio headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 1-855-TRAJAN-1. That's 1-855-TRAJAN-1. Or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. All right, you just heard from J.J. Redick there. I think so many things when I hear that. First off, I'll say, I think J.J. Redick was speaking his truth the way he saw it. And I hate the way in pro sports and in college sports, which is becoming pro sports very, very quickly, so many people retreat to the castle, pull up the drawbridge, don't want to be bothered, don't want to talk to you, don't need to deal with you. They're already making their 50 or 100 million or whatever. They want to deal with you. So the fact that J.J. Redick will go out there and talk and say what he thinks, I appreciate, especially because I think he knows he's going to get some scoffing, some scorning, he'll get ridiculed, he'll get derided. Because here's a couple things that J.J. Redick is smart enough to know. They just lost to the Thunder by 18. LeBron wasn't going to make enough trips to the free throw line to make up for that. The Thunder, I thought, were pretty much coasting. It wasn't SGA's best game. They weren't really good when he was on the floor. They know they're going to beat the Lakers. They know they're better than the Lakers. They trailed at halftime. It didn't matter. They pulled away in the second half, and they won by 18. There weren't going to be enough calls to change the outcome of the game. I don't think that's what JJ's saying. Also, to the rest of the league, but especially to Utah and Sacramento and Portland and San Antonio and Indiana and any other small to medium market that's lost to the Lakers in the playoffs. The league and the refs are biased against the Lakers. Tell me another one. That is rich. Great. Tremendous humor. Let me get you a stand-up gig somewhere. Let's get you out on tour. That's hilarious. What a terrible take. The Lakers get every benefit of the doubt, and everybody in every one of the cities that I just mentioned believes that to their core, including all the people listening to me right now here in Utah. Which is why I think JJ was just saying what he thinks he's seen possession by possession over the course of 2 seasons coaching LeBron. Because he knows, and I don't think he was saying we would have beaten the Thunder if he got the call. And he knows, because he played in New Orleans, the Lakers get calls. They don't get in New Orleans. So I think that's really what he's seen and what he believes. Even with the rest of us just kind of roll our eyes and scoff at it. Thunder look good. We're talking about going good to great this morning. I just mentioned going to the break. There's 3 teams in the playoffs that I think look great. You got the Thunder, defending champs. They are 6-0 in the playoffs. Now, they have earned the right to get a soft start, an easy start to the playoffs. They get an 8 seed. Detroit got an 8 seed and struggled and win 7 games. First off, get yourself somebody where there's a big talent gap, and then play to a level where you take advantage of that and win in 4, and they did. And now they have a team in the Lakers that obviously they're missing Doncic, and I think it's pretty clear Austin Reeves is not 100%. Excuse me. So they're 6-0, but I think they're going to keep rolling. Scotty G was on earlier this morning, and before I cough again, Scotty G was on earlier this morning, and he said he thinks that the number should be set at 19.5. Can the Thunder win the NBA title playing less than 19.5 games? We don't want to have a push, so he picked the 19.5. He thinks they can get it done by going 16-3 or maybe 16-2, 16-1. I think they're going to lose some games. They need more than that. But I do think they're the best team. I do acknowledge the Spurs had success in the regular season. Maybe the Spurs can get them in the playoffs. But let's see if the Spurs get there. They're 1-1 with the Timberwolves. Minnesota's going home for 2 games. And let's see what these games look like. Because the Timberwolves had a lot of things go right. Very few things go wrong. And they won a close one. Now, in Game 2, they got smoked. They're embarrassed, and they push back here in Game 3 and 4. So is this 2-2? Is it a 3-1 series when we go back to San Antonio for Game 5? Intrigued to see. But I think if the Spurs get past the Timberwolves, and I picked them to, and I still think they will, but the Timberwolves have earned enough respect that there should at least be a little doubt in all of our mind. So let's see how it goes this weekend. They play Game 3 tonight. It's the Knicks and Sixers at 5, and then the Spurs and Timberwolves at 7:30. Both those games on Prime Video. So if you've got your Amazon, you're good to go there for the playoff games tonight. The Knicks, OG Anunoby suffered a hamstring strain late in their game to win. He's considered day-to-day. It's a hamstring. You're up 2-0. I wouldn't mess around with it myself, but I'm not a doctor and I haven't examined it. But I think a little time off. The injuries have been a big problem. Everybody's talking about how many three-pointers are taken. Everybody's talking about the load management. Well, I think the load management is happening because these teams are really getting hurt. These players on multiple teams are getting hurt. It's not just one training staff. It's rampant across the league throughout the playoffs. And I've seen more discussion. They did an anonymous survey of NBA players, and the players are actually like, we need to get rid of 10 games and back-to-backs. That's why guys are breaking down. You're asking them to run so much and then get on a plane, fly to another time zone, and run some more. Of course, this is going to happen. They need the best players to play. Celebrity is what sells. We want to see the best players, not only the superstars. Like, Anunoby's a good player. I don't think he's a superstar. I don't think he's a celebrity, but partly because of his name and partly because of his team. It's a big market, and they're pretty good. So you know who he is. I know who he is. You know who he is. You want to see him play. You don't want to hear he's out. You know, and that's not on the same level with Luka Doncic being out, but it doesn't matter. We still want to see these guys. We want their lineups intact. And if he said that, I'd probably sit him tonight. And the players did acknowledge in the survey, I don't know how we make up the money. They should have done it when they got the big TV contract because nobody would have felt the loss. It's just like the pay raises would have slowed down, but nobody even wants that, so they didn't do it. There you go. If you want the money, you got to make choices, and one choice is guys are going to get hurt and sit. And I think that's another question that we can look at the Jazz going forward is, do they play these guys 35 minutes a night? I'm looking at the top 10 players in the league and minutes played, games played, and that kind of stuff, and those guys have a lot of injuries. So sub these guys out, play 30 minutes, rotate through, sit, let other guys play. This whole obsession about Markkanen and, you know, can he really play at the 3? Because now they got a 4. Well, Jackson can play 10 minutes at the 5 against a backup center. And that means with the time he's on the bench also, that opens up 20 minutes for Markkanen into the fourth. So now Markkanen's only got to play maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes at the 3. And maybe that opens up spot there for A.J. DeBonsa or Ace Bailey or however they want to slide guys around. I think there's some possibilities there. One weird story. We're all waiting for an exclamation on Darren Peterson, who could be the number 1 pick in the draft. That was certainly the thought at the start of the season. But then he misses close to a dozen games, maybe 10. And then he sits in the second half of a bunch of other games. And now all these doubts, like, if he doesn't go hard in college, is he going to go hard? Is he just protecting himself? He needs a story. And here's the story. You got to have a way to explain this. He says it's because he was using high doses of creatine. He says, I'd never taken it before I arrived at Kansas, but after the season I took 2 weeks off and they did tests which showed my baseline level was already high. So they said when I dosed the creatine, it must have made the levels unsafe. So his baseline is high, and Kansas encouraged him or expected him to take this stuff, and it wasn't healthy. That doesn't reflect well on Kansas. I can't wait for the pushback in the next chapter in this story. And is that really what's going on with Peterson? Does that explain it? I wasn't pre-med on Friday nights at UC Santa Barbara. I don't have the background to know this kind of stuff. That's technical medical stuff, and somebody more informed than me will have to tell me if that could explain what he was going through. And if it does, and it's a good explanation, his talent, I mean, he can shoot it. You want the biscuit in the basket, that guy can score. Now, can he do everything else? How well-rounded will his game be at the NBA level? We can all debate that. I have seen mock drafts where Boozer goes in front of Peterson. You know, here's the thing about Boozer. First, you got to say this right away. He's really good. He's really, really good. You can see that watching college basketball. Now, having said that, he's not going to go number 1. And I believe that, and this isn't breaking news, I think that's just because of his limited athletic ability by NBA standards. In this draft, with what we expect out of NBA players, you got to be off the charts. A.J. DeBonsa did stuff that made you scream at the TV. Whoa! I can't believe it, right? Throwing down dunks, blocking shots, whatever it is. That guy has a level of explosiveness and ability to change direction. Fantastic. And Boozer doesn't have it. And so that's going to knock him down a couple pegs. You know why you want Boozer? And I think this is super clear. First off, he reminds me a lot of his dad. I think he's got a complete game. I think he can do a lot of things. I think if you throw out the athletic ability, which you can't do because it's the NBA, but if you could, and if the question was simply, which player in this draft is most likely to get 100% out of his potential, I think it's Boozer. I think he does everything you could do. I saw everything from him I wanted to see in college except crazy levels of athleticism. How explosive is he? You know, with his size, he's not the best jumper. When he goes against a 7-footer who is, how's he going to get a shot off around the rim? Probably the way his dad did. Like the ability to use the offhand, the ability to pump fake, pivot, change direction, go the other way, send the shot blocker on a flyby, the ability to use his body to create space. I mean, I don't know how you could see a player and think, did his dad coach him up? Was his dad really good at this sport? Because the answer is his dad was really good at this sport, and his dad has clearly coached him up. So I think if you get Boozer, you're going to know you got the most that he could give you. But the fact is there are other players who have more athletic ability, and that's a tough box to get checked against you. Having said all that, I still think he's going second or third, and Peterson might have dropped behind Boozer. It'll depend with the draft lottery coming up Sunday at 1 o'clock. We'll see which teams land, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll start figuring out who they're valuing and where guys may be slotted. But right now, it's kind of an abstract argument. I am starting to see Peterson in a couple mock drafts. He's been 2, and then I look at a couple more and he's 3. So we'll see how that plays out. The college basketball news, the men's and women's basketball tournament's official. They're going to 76. They're going to have doubleheaders on back-to-back days in Dayton. That's what they've had. Now they're going to have a 12-game opening round. So that's 6 games and 2 sites, Dayton and somewhere else, and then they'll pick sites for the women as well. And it makes sense. Vegas or Salt Lake, lots of flights, the ability to send a team to a regional in Texas or a team to a regional in Portland or Sacramento or L.A., Arizona, wherever they're going. Lots of flights. Geography works. I would think they put it in Vegas or Salt Lake. All right, I mentioned the Thunder are one team we're watching in the playoffs at a very high level. You got to put Carolina there. My gosh. They had an awesome regular season. They got themselves a good seed, and now they are 7-0 in the playoffs. They beat the Flyers 4-1. Dominant performance. Philly's at home. Philly's down 2-0. Philly knows they need a win to get back into the series, and what happens? They get smoked at home 4-1. So, Colorado had the best record in the league, 121 points. Carolina was second, 113 points. They're best in the East, they're best in the West. Carolina is now 7-0 in the playoffs. Colorado is 6-0 in the playoffs. The Avs are flying. Carolina's flying. If you're looking for two teams that are great right now, there you go. And probable Stanley Cup final. I know crazy things happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's hockey. That puck can ding off the post, and then does it go in or go out? There's a little bit of luck involved there, a little bit of good fortune. You know, some crazy deflection in front of the net goes just wide or it goes in. Might be off you, might be off the opponent, might be your goal, might be the opponent's goal. There's a randomness to this sport for sure. But, man, Colorado and Carolina are just crushing people right now. A combined 13-0 in the playoffs after having the two best regular season records. Yeah, I think there's two teams that have reached great. I think that's what we're seeing right there. Other things we talked about, baseball, it's really weird. You know, usually, hey, somebody wins 7 out of 10, somebody wins 3 out of 10, you know, the teams pull away. But we're seeing streaks. Tampa Bay's won 7 in a row right after they won 6 in a row, like 13-1 in their last 14. The Yankees have a stretch sort of like that going. The Cubs have won 9 in a row. They've won 15 straight at home. They've won 19 of 22 overall. They are on fire right now. The Cubs win again. They beat Cincinnati 8-3 to sweep that series. The Cubs' 15 straight wins at Wrigley Field coming up on the stadium record. Stadium records don't matter so much because they're tearing them down every 20 or 30 years, it seems like. I just read a thing, the Big A is the 4th oldest stadium in Major League Baseball, and the Dodger Stadium is 3rd. It's hard to build stadiums in California. And that's one reason the Chargers moved and the Raiders moved. And, man, the Giants and 49ers, they had long quests to get their new stadiums. They are hard to build and hard to get done. But the Cubs have been in that stadium for more than 100 years. So stadium records matter there in a way they don't matter in Atlanta or Arlington because they built stadiums every 15 years. The Cubs won 18 straight at home in 1935. Now they're at 15 straight at home. They are closing in on that record. That's one place the record matters. You got a little bit of data. You got a little sample size there. Bees lost to Oklahoma City 6-5. They play again tonight at 6 o'clock. Tony Park's on the call on 1280 The Zone. And they'll play again Saturday. You'll hear that game as well on 1280 The Zone. Coming up Saturday on 97.5 The Zone is Real Salt Lake and FC Dallas. We just had Pablo Mastroeni on. If you want to listen to that conversation with him, you can get that wherever you get your podcasts. Go to KSLSports.com, go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, whatever, and you can hear Pablo talking about his team and where it stands. They're at Dallas, and then it's 4 games before the break against teams that are basically in the middle of the league. I think Minnesota's just a little in front of them. Dallas just a little behind them. They've also got Houston and Colorado who are a little behind them. So they're basically playing the middle of the Western Conference. We'll see how they stack up. They dominate. They get dominated. They split the games. It's 2 home, 2 away. We'll get a little check on them before they disappear for 6 or 7 weeks for a World Cup break. And one baseball note I should have mentioned. It's not in Utah, so that's a little bit of a disappointment. But the Bees are playing Oklahoma City. That's the Dodgers AAA affiliate. And the Dodger star Mookie Betts expected to start a rehab assignment tonight as the Bees play OKC. He's coming off an oblique strain, suffered on a check swing during the at-bat. So Mookie, little AAA ball against the Bees. That'll be legendary for the Bees to get to go against somebody. Those guys in AAA got to be pumped to see Mookie Betts in person and go against him. All right, DJ and PK. Oh, a couple other things. College football. Yuck. Who do you know? Who can you talk to get that BYU Washington State, or BYU Notre Dame game set up in Vancouver? Syracuse and Wake Forest are going to Toronto. I feel validated that game has been announced. I've been saying teams should go to Toronto. ASU, PK was just talking about this. ASU's going like week 3. They're going over in the middle of the season. They're traveling to go play at Wembley. And I just read a thing that the stadium's too big and the tickets are priced too high and they're not selling that many tickets. Well, what are we doing, people?
Or just ask FIFA. FIFA will figure it out for you.
It's easier to take a vacation and follow your team in August. What?
I said, ask FIFA. They'll figure it out for you. Not.
Yeah. See, it's easier for people to follow teams in August and September. Scheduling a September game, that just doesn't make sense to me. Kids are back in school. August, you got a fighting chance. You got a fighting chance to get vacation time in August. September, the boss rolls your eyes at you. It doesn't make any sense to me why they're doing that. And you don't have to go that far. And once they start playing on week 0, this loophole may go away. I mean, if you're going to capitalize on it, Vancouver's a great town to go vacation in for a weekend. There's tons of places to eat. It's on the water. It's a time of year when the weather there is glorious. It's a big city. There's a lot to do. Fill that place up. Fans driving up from Seattle, Washington, BYU. Let's go. Big Ten versus the Big 12. Let's do it. Washington's only getting a half share in the Big Ten. They need a little more money. Get a payday out of an extra football game. Let's do it. Let's go. All right, DJ and PK, that is what we've been talking about this morning. Your feedback's coming up next. Stay with us. It is time for the feedback of the day, and it's brought to you by Half Price Granite. Transform your outdated kitchen with Half Price Granite. $25 per square foot installed. Visit halfpricegranite.com. All right, topic of the morning. How do you go from good to great? It is a question facing so many of our local teams. BYU football, BYU basketball, Utah football, the Jazz, the Mammoth, and RSL. All right, I'm jumping the gun on the Jazz a little bit because they're not good. They've tanked 4 years in a row. But I do believe they're going to win 45 games for sure next year. I think they could win 50. Let's see how the draft goes. Draft lottery, Sunday, 1 o'clock. Let's see how the offseason goes. You get through that, see what the roster really looks like and what everybody else's roster looks like, and then we can probably evaluate that better. But I'm not ruling out a 50-win season. But I do think this is a team doomed to go out in the first or second round of the playoffs. I'd actually be impressed if they win a playoff series. That'd be great. But with Oklahoma City and San Antonio in the West, and the way this roster looks right now, I'm trying to figure out, scratch your head, exactly how do they win 2 series and get to a conference final? I think if they do, you're a legit title contender. The championship window is open to that point. It just look, that's a big jump. I can't make that jump yet. No way. I'll make the jump to 45 or 50 wins. I'll make the jump to maybe winning a playoff series. Let's see who they match up with. Let's see how the year goes. Let's see what the roster looks like. But good to great. How did the Jazz do it? Are they painting themselves in a corner a little bit with these two $50 million contracts? And now Kessler and Keontae George need to be paid in consecutive summers, and their numbers need to come in right. So when Austin Ainge says he's working on getting better, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. There are puzzles to solve here. And, you're the one who wanted that job, and you're getting paid good money and all those things. So see how they figure it out. See what options they avail themselves of going forward. But trade's coming. Don't get too emotionally attached to anybody because I don't think they can get there just with the simple internal organic growth that we always used to hear Dennis Lindsay talk about. That's an important thing. I don't underestimate that. How you get all these young draft picks to improve so that they're rotation guys for playoff teams and maybe a starter for a rotation team. You've got to be good at that internal organic growth, but that alone isn't going to push them across the line. Got a question up on our Facebook page. How does your favorite team go from good to great? And we got some good responses to this one. And most of you answering in the form of a GIF, which I appreciate. A little comedy in there. I like it. It's funny how if you say the same thing in words or a GIF, in social media, if you say it in words, you tend to get attacked. And if you say it in a GIF, people tend to laugh. There's some psychology there I don't completely understand, but I find it fascinating. In any case, Chewbacca says, how do we go from good to great? This, period. This is how, period. Hashtag D-backs. And he's got Randy Johnson, the ball cap on and almost a smile on his face. Not quite, just a little bit of a grin, and he's holding the World Series trophy. And standing next to him, holding what looks like, I don't know, is that an MVP trophy, I think? Or maybe it's a National League trophy. I'm not sure. I don't know. I only know what the World Series trophy looks like. The big one is Curt Schilling. 2001 World Series champs. That's it. The Diamondbacks in like their third year of existence. Got 2 awesome pitchers. Those 2 guys got on a roll, and they rode them to a championship. And they beat the Yankees in the World Series. It was sweet. I wonder if that recipe works anymore. 2 dominant pitchers and you ride them. It's certainly not what the Dodgers have used the last couple of years. And I don't know that anybody else is really set up for that right now, where you got two dominant guys. You have teams that have pretty good staffs, or a dominant guy and some pretty good guys. I don't think anybody has that combo. But a good theory. Good work, Chewbacca. I like it. And then we got D-Tier Ute Stan at Mr. Frank 1212. He just sends a picture of Morgan Scally with that gray beard. Morgan looks 10 years younger since he shaved that beard off. Good decision, Morgan. Take it off. You're the head coach now. And he looks younger, too. The gray beard. No, lose it. And he did. See, it's pretty interesting here. I mean, on the one hand, you can say, no, D-Tier, you're wrong. And the argument there is, hey, it's about NIL money, and the Utes need to be on a higher tier. They need more cash if they're really going to go from good to great. There is another argument that Morgan needs to do what Kyle did, because what Kyle did got him to 11-2. I mean, they handled everybody except BYU, and BYU handled everybody but Texas Tech. Our two local teams are really good. 12-2, 11-2. But, for all their differences, what the Ute and the Cougars fan bases have in common is they want to go to the playoff. And when they get there, they want to win. And neither one of them was seriously talked about. BYU was talked about in passing, but they weren't seriously talked about getting in. And you can go to politics and in the Big 12, and, there's probably a lot of truth to that. And they don't have, the history that Miami has. Now, the people who put Miami in the tournament can say, well, Miami won an opening round game, went to Texas A&M and won, and then they won their quarterfinal, and then they won their semi, and then they actually pushed Indiana in the title game, and no one pushed Indiana. Indiana was blowing people out. I suppose Ohio State did. Ohio State and Miami were the only two who pushed him. But does Morgan make a change in the passing game? That's the one place where Kyle's teams need to be upgraded. Do they get a little better there? Because I think even being a little better there could pay big dividends. But you got to keep everything else rock solid. Kyle did a lot of other things right. Is that D-line going to stay awesome? Is the O-line going to be awesome? They got a lot of work to do. I think the O-line's more of a finished product. I think the D-line, I have more questions right now. So, awesome picture of Morgan. Good idea there, Mr. Frank. Thanks for sending that in. We'll spend more time on that. We got more time to talk college football going forward. Scotty G and the coach are next. Have a good weekend. We'll see you back here. Good luck to the Jazz Sunday, 1 o'clock. We all find out. Tim, Scotty will be talking about it next. Stay with us.
Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.